So there's been a lot of conversation around our so-called vote against human rights earlier this week. I thought I'd clear the air. First off, the NDP are completely misleading for political purposes what actually happened with these types of votes. And it's mainly because they've had a disastrous week of coverage around their budget. And so they're trying to change the channel and get away with people not actually scrutinizing what they're doing. So here's the simple facts. A member introduces a bill. They have a couple of minutes to introduce and say what that bill is about. Now, that is all we have to go on. We have not read the legislation ahead of time, and so we vote at first reading, not about the bill. We vote to actually be able to read the piece of legislation. It then goes to second reading, and that's when the government decides whether or not there will be any further conversation about this bill or not. And typically, on private members' bills, there is zero further discussion about it. Now, the government earlier, and around that same time, introduced a piece of freedom of information legislation where if you heard the minister describe it, you would think this was a great improvement on existing freedom of information legislation. I voted at first reading yes, so I could actually read the piece of legislation. Once I reviewed the legislation, I realized the government is actually trying to get away from scrutiny and actually bring in even less oversight with their freedom of information law. I will be voting against that bill at second reading. And that is the key piece here. We were voting to actually read a piece of legislation. I fully support human rights. I know it's illegal to remove human rights. It was about seeing what was in the actual proposed legislation, letting that MLA defend it to the public, and let it see the light of day. As it stands right now, no one has actually read that legislation other than the MLA that introduced it, because none of us have seen it because the bill was defeated at first reading. So I think it's important that people understand why we are just saying yes at first reading and why the NDP, frankly, is trying to hyper-politicize and play games with what is really just a procedural quirk within the Westminster system that we are forced to operate under to even read what legislation is. I hope that clears things up.